The Washington Redskins are changing their name. What about the Indians, the Blackhawks, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Atlanta Braves? All that right here, right now, on this episode of The Bizz. Get All right, and welcome to The Bizz, where we're all up in it. And today we're all up here in Simi Valley. I'm your boy Daniels, D-Money.
Hey, Ron, this place is foreign to me.
Charis Moreno. I'm excited on the west side. Wasn't invited to the slumber party, but we're here.
Well, you know. All right, so the Washington Redskins. A couple weeks ago, Dan Snyder specifically said, even in big quotes, I will never change the name of this team. But things changed. You know, FedEx and Nike decided they were going to pull out $600 billion. We're not going to give you a new stadium if you don't change the name. And FedEx and Nike started pulling money away from. And so Dan Snyder quickly changed his tune, which caused a whole series of dominoes to start to fall in regards to all these name changes, right? So my question is, now that these dominoes are falling, you got the Redskins doing it and people bringing up other teams, where is all this going to end? Like, at what point is enough enough?
Yeah.
Charis, hit it. I know she's ready.
We got to look at the Chiefs, got to look at the Braves, the Indians, the Blackhawks, the Yankees, the Patriots, the Buccaneers, Pirates, the Raiders, the Chargers. Got to look at all of them.
Because a lot of those names are derived from things that happened, during wartime when the country was still trying to decide who was going to rule the land, right? And, and whether, a lot of those names come from controversial times.
I get the Redskin thing. I mean, at some point, you got to draw the line somewhere. We can't go so bland to be the San Antonio paint chips, just basics. Everybody's too offended. Everybody.
And I get that. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't have, according to 23andMe, I don't have enough Native American Indian to stake a claim. However, I do understand that if it offends a certain group of people, and then we should probably look at it and change the name. I don't have a personal dog in that fight. However, I'm all for the Black Lives movement as far as what we're trying to do in equality. Yeah. So I'm more than willing to, ally myself, with the Native Americans. I'll ally myself with the LGBTQ alphabet group. I'll ally myself with, women, violence against women and equality for women. I'm down. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to. So, but as far as the Redskins thing goes, I agree. If it's offensive, then let's do it. But
look at it. But at what point do we not allow? I could be offended by pink hair. I could be offended. At what point do we stop? And there was a really awesome email that was sent to Clarence Page of the Chicago Tribune, and this reader really digs in to all of the names that we really need to start looking at, and there's nobody off the table. You got the MLB, so baseball, basketball, football. No one is safe in this moment. And when you read this guy's email, and maybe Daniels, if you want to put it in the link or something and kind of reference it, but the Carolina Panthers, he calls out, obviously named to keep the was it named to keep the memory of the militant blacks from the 60s alive? Gone. It's offensive to white people. The Yankees, it offends the Southern population. You don't see a team named the Confederacy, right? Obviously that's not how they're pulling that flag anyway, they should have pulled that a long time ago. And then you've got to look at the blatant reference to Catholic religion when you're talking about the Saints, the Angels, and the Padres, right? Where do we draw the line? And this guy really, really, what he says makes a lot of sense. When you glorify criminals who rape and pillage, Raiders, Vikings, Buccaneers, Pirates, I mean, and then you talk about, what type of message are we sending our kids with the San Diego Chargers? That promotes irresponsible fighting and maybe even spending habits. Like, he's got good points. Now, do I believe? Oh, wait, and the Brewers, don't forget the Brewers. That sends the wrong message of alcoholism. So the Giants and the San Francisco Giants, the New York Giants, that promotes obesity, and that's a growing childhood epidemic. Cincinnati Reds, that promotes downers and barbiturates. Wrong message to our children.
Wow.
What he says is funny, right? But
just cancel sports. Just
it
cancel.
is. I mean, and it is funny, but when you hear some of those, obviously you're like, all right.
It makes you think, but like the point of ridiculous.
She has a good point.
But she does.
If somebody's always, I feel like somebody's always offended. It's like it's somebody's job. I'm offended. That hat offends me. I'm offended.
We can't please everyone because no matter what you do, someone is going to be offended.
I'm waiting for the equine community to be upset that we're promoting male horses.
Right. If you're not a meat packer, right? If you're not in the meat industry, that's
vegan.
I'm vegan.
I'm offended because I'm a vegan.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, there's a lot, right? So to your question and to your point, where do we draw the line? And, I really didn't think about it. When buildings are named after people or events, when, I graduated from Port Neches Groves High School, we're the Indians. We have a beautiful mascot. And I mean, it is in true Indian garb, and you have to learn the dance to be able to be that mascot. And now we're under fire. We have been for years, but now even more. The city is like, you need to change your name. Now, when they walk off the football field in the marching I, saying beat 'em, beat 'em, beat 'em, black and blue, hey, 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 scalp 'em, Indians, scalp 'em. Maybe you change that.
The kids are
I have that. I literally have that.
Yeah. Oh man.
So that maybe you change that, but the mascot is beautiful. I mean, look it up, Port Neches Groves Indians, and watch the way that we commemorate the Indian and the culture because of where we're located in Southeast Texas. But to me, it benefits. Now the Redskins maybe looks a little bit more aggressive, but I don't have any.
Only because that was actually a direct racial slur, apparently.
Right.
But let me talk about other things. So you mentioned other teams, and since the Redskins were kind of in the news at the moment, there were immediately other teams that came to mind, like the Blackhawks, the Indians, the Braves, right?
Right.
So the Blackhawks released a statement saying that they are not going to change their name because their name actually is in honor of an actual Native American chief Blackhawk. The owner of the Chicago Blackhawks, the Blackhawks joined the NHL in 1926. The owner, Fred McLaughlin, was a World War II veteran, and he was in the 86th Infantry Division, I believe, if I have that correct. And that division was nicknamed the Blackhawks, which was named after Chief Blackhawk. So they're saying they're not changing the name because their name isn't offensive. It's actually in honor.
Right.
Of
commemorating a man that was
great
things and. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what they're saying. Interestingly enough, I looked up the Chiefs' history, and apparently the Chiefs aren't even named after Indians. It is named after the former mayor of Kansas City. His name was H. Roe Bartle. And in the early 60s, he was instrumental in convincing Lamar Hunt from bringing the Chiefs, because the Chiefs used to be the Dallas Texans back in the 60s. And he convinced, and this is by an article by Jeff Fetterton, by the way, I'm not just coming up with stuff. He was instrumental in having Lamar Hunt bring the Chiefs to Kansas City. And the mayor's nickname was the Chief. So the team is actually named after this former mayor. However, it does still call into question, the tomahawk chop that they do. And then I think they ride a horse through the, whenever there's a touchdown score.
And they hit the drum and all that.
Yeah, so that Indian imagery, that Native American imagery could be offensive. But according to the Chiefs, they're not even named after, an Indian. It's
actual Indian, right?
Yeah, right. Even though, you see their symbol, it is an arrowhead.
Yeah.
Right.
They play Arrowhead Stadium.
So they play Arrowhead Stadium. So even though they say that they weren't named after Indians or Native Americans, they still have that imagery, the tomahawk chop and dancing and
cowboys, cowboys were cowboyish, right? Like going around, going into towns, taking over. I mean, there's the Rangers.
Yeah, and actually the history of the word cowboy,
yeah,
the history of the word cowboy is actually what slave owners used to call their slave ranch hands who dealt with their cows.
So
that's where that term originally came from.
You think Jerry Jones is changing the name of that team?
Jerry Jones is changing the name. But Jerry,
it's not happening.
You might want to look into the origin of the name.
He said, I look and I don't care.
Yeah.
That team is worth $1 trillion bajillion. It's a real number.
Right.
And he's not changing that name.
Right. But it's interesting how, over the years, we have things that are, in our society or kind of in our culture, and we don't realize come from it if they are offending people. Right. So again, I think it's good that we are sensitive to it, but
it seems like we're becoming too sensitive. I went through this in high school. I started high school as a Birmingham Brave and finished as a Birmingham Patriot because
same school
name in high school. And in 10th grade, they let the students vote, and Patriots, they painted over everything because we used to do the tomahawk chop and all that. And people were offended back then.
Right.
I think if anything that is good coming out of all of this is it's creating conversation, right? Like it's bringing some people to talk. Some people don't know how to talk. They just yell and, offend, and you don't believe what I believe, and you're a racist, or you're insensitive, or, whatever. But I think if we could sit and just chat and truly listen with our ears and not our mouths, and really start to understand and create, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy, right? And being able to stop, take a breath, and listen to how the other person feels, because what they've been through that you haven't could create a spark in them that creates an anxiety or a fear. So I think, if anything, for me, that's the best part of this. But one of the things that you can't do is say you're offended about this and then start attacking and calling other people, that person names because they're questioning, which is what happened to me this last week. Is it's like, well, why don't we start looking? And it's like, oh, well, and then I was called a name, and it's like, how can you be offended by the name Redskins, but you're not offended by the name, by the word retarded, right? Like that should be a word that should be removed out of anyone's vocabulary.
Right.
You can't be offended and then offend.
To actually speak to that point, I can't think of the guy's name, but in post-production, I'll put his picture and his name up here so you can see it. And he was a black guy. A couple weeks ago, he walked through New York City with a Redskins shirt on, but instead of it saying Redskins, it said Caucasians across the bottom. And white people were offended by it. And he was like, well, you see how Redskins didn't bother you until it was about you. Yeah. So it was interesting. It was a cool little social experiment he did. I'll actually put his picture and his name up here so people can reference it. I should have looked it up before I hit record, but I didn't. See,
well, shame on you.
But that's all right. With with post production, I can just put that sucker right in there. So right, it's a rookie move, right? But yeah, so I guess I do like the fact that it does inspire conversation, but we still do have a lot of people out there who are so easily offended or want to. People are just
how many people need to be offended? Let's take Redskins. If it's 2 people in Washington that are offended, are we changing the name? I mean, is there
what's the quantifiable number?
Yeah, is it 100? Is it 1,000?
And I think on the website they did a poll, and it said a certain percentage of Native Americans said they weren't offended. But did you really go talk to all the Native Americans in the country? I mean, it's
when they
hard,
do these surveys and statistics, they go 1 in 5 people like this. Well, nobody ever asked me anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's like a statistician, right? They'll ask 1,000 people, and then they'll take that number and quantify it over a larger population.
Yes, because statistics don't lie, but statisticians do. right?
That's right.
And bend those numbers to make it seem, 4 out of 5 didn't surveyed recommend Trident sugarless gum.
All you have to
chew
do
gum, but
is
if you only
sit-
surveyed 20 people,
Yes, it's
that's
never.
not a big enough
I've
survey.
never met anybody that's been surveyed. All you have to do is say it with a straight face and with conviction.
Oh yeah.
7 and 9 dogs.
So
99% of statistics are made up on the spot.
yes, I believe. Look, you say it with a straight face.
right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's so
And
true.
there are some people who will read this stuff and just follow it blindly without doing their own research. And, and I think that's a lot of times where we have the butting of heads when we're trying to, change history, or we're changing these.
Cancel history.
Right?
Oh, God.
Yes. And
Cancel
some people,
culture.
people are stuck in their belief. They don't want to, they feel like they have to sacrifice their own self in order to entertain another belief for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are afraid to do that, and I understand that. But the conversations do need to be had. And
Absolutely.
and I do like. I'm hoping that this will help inspire more conversation instead of all the strife.
Yeah.
I believe.
And I think we also need to make sure that just because it doesn't offend you doesn't mean it's not offensive, right? And I struggle with that as a woman, because I could be in a group of men, which I usually am because I work with mostly men, and my whole life I have. I'm not offended by, if we're, I don't know, somewhere and someone looks at another woman and is like, oh man, she's beautiful, or oh, I like whatever. Like, that does not offend me as a woman.
Right.
Like, there is nothing wrong with acknowledging the beauty of someone. Usually I'm the one pointing it out anyway, right? So it's like, oh, look, I like her shoes, or oh, I like whatever. But you have to remember, and especially me, because I'm not easily offended, it doesn't mean that I'm not
right.
offending someone else, and then it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be open to hearing someone else. Why does that offend you? And really understanding it, because maybe that could change my mind. Not even change my mind, open my mind to understand and have a little bit more sympathy, to that person's position.
Right.
But
okay, so we're gonna wind this down here, but I do like I like the fact that we brought all those other names to light, because it made me think. I hadn't really considered, the Yankees and how that could be offensive to people, or I hadn't considered the Padres and the Saints when you're talking about the Catholic. I mean, I hadn't thought about any of those things, right? I was thinking about what the news spit out, which is terrible, right? Yeah, they're pushing the whole Redskins thing, so that's obviously, let's talk about that. But all those other things, they're, again, no matter what we do, someone's going to be offended. So we need to be able to have uncomfortable conversations, so we can, bridge all those gaps in communication.
Or try to.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I know it's not going to be,
it'll never be perfect.
Yeah, it'll never be perfect, but
Communication.
we should never stop striving for it.
Right.
Right. So anyway, for everyone out there, if you like what you're hearing, please make sure you hit the like button, thumbs up. Please put some comments below the video. I know some of you get through our videos on Facebook, which is great. You comment to me on my Facebook page, but I would love it if you comment under the video, because that would be much more awesome. Yes. And please subscribe. All right. We love it. All right. From Simi Valley, I'm signing out. Daniel's D Money.
Hey, Ron.
Chatty Charis.
Oh, yeah.
And we're out.
Bizz.